Hey everyone, Saul from Games here. Coming to you today with the second part of my Commander 2019 analysis. So for today, I'm going to be looking at what I think is the number 2 deck, though very much coin toss between what is number 1 and number 2 with these 4 decks, and that is the Naya Populate deck. Now, for those of you who don't know, Populate is a mechanic where you copy an existing token you have. So this originally only showed up in Return to Ravnica as a Selesnya ability, and I find it interesting that they added Naya to it, so red. Natural progression that makes sense for it. Also, the character being the main commander for it is Jared Conclave Exile. So right there, the Selesnya Conclave, someone in exile. So it's probably someone who either dabbled too much with Gruul or something to that effect. I'm curious to see what the story is exactly behind this commander. So, like the last video, I'm just going to analyze the commanders related to the color and give you kind of an overview of my thoughts of the deck. Now, so Gerard Conclave Exile, which is the main commander, is a 5 CMC commander. He is a 2/5 human shaman. When he enters the battlefield, you get a 4/4 green rhino token with trample. And whenever he attacks, you get to populate. Whatever token you create will come in tapped and attacking. So really strong ability right there. Makes it probably one of the more powerful decks right out of the box, because usually smash face decks straight out of the box are the strongest. That's why in last year Windgrace kind of beat out the other ones, because the other ones will need significant upgrades to optimize what Wizards intended for them. And like I've talked in the past video, and I'll talk about it again later on, there's always 3 different commanders that are designed for the colors of the deck. This is one of the few decks where I've seen it where the 3 commanders don't really fight each other, if you know what I mean. Usually their mechanics are so far apart that they don't work trying to mash them together. And at least in this one, you can kind of figure out a semblance of fitting them together. Now, obviously, if you want to focus on the populate stuff more, you're going to end up taking out the other ones. But, that's a whole other thing. And if you'd like to see my ideas for upgrades to this deck, feel free to comment below, and I'll put out a deck list for this. So next up, you have ATLA Pal, Nest Tender. She's a 4 CMC human. She's a 2/3. You can pay 2, tap her. She creates a 0/1 egg counter. While she's in play, if an egg dies, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card and it gets put into play. That's really strong. Essentially, what you're doing is a polymorph effect or anything like that to cheat out bigger creatures. So if you did a commander with this, that's really cool. You can do something where you're only running creatures like Blightsteel and other big creatures. So it'd be interesting to see where you can take it with this. As a commander, I don't know. With it being a 2/3, it's really easy to remove. You're also in Naya, so you don't have a ton of ways of protecting your stuff. And that's ultimately my issue with smash face decks or heavily creature-based strategies, is removal's a thing, and it's always going to be a dominant thing, especially in a format like Commander. So overall, though, solid commander. I know the manager for the other location we have was planning some kind of, pretty much the only creatures in his deck are going to be massive creatures, have some kind of sack outlet or way to destroy your own egg, and get an egg, kill the egg, instantly get out stuff like Blightsteel or Emrakul, or just big nasty things to deal with. So really solid commander. I think that's a lot of fun. Next up, we have Marisi, Breaker of the Coil, 4 CMC, 5/4 Cat Warrior. Your opponents can't cast spells during combat. So right there, you just cut off all combat tricks from people, which is a very, very big thing, I think. Just because, again, Commander is one of those formats where playing stuff during your opponent's turn is a big deal. So now they have to either deal with your stuff before combat, or you're going to be hitting them in the face with it. So kind of cool. I can see that working as a commander. Again, you're going to be looking at more of a smash face style commander if you want to make this. And the second ability is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you goad all their creatures. So they have to attack next turn, which might seem like nothing, but for people who use creatures as engines, so things like Viscera Seer or Blood Artist, other things that you don't attack with, but you use them for passive effects, they now have to attack in with those, which now gives you an opportunity to kill them through combat. And if you have your commander out, they can't stop it. It's, I think, a really cool thing. Now, overall, that's going to throw a monkey wrench into a lot of decks. I think this might be this or the main commander Jared would be the throw up for which commander I would pick out of this to build. Overall, this is a very, very solid deck. It's very cohesive. It fits a lot of token strategies. They give you a lot of good cards to help with your token stuff. Obviously, they didn't give you the huge token stuff you want to add. You know, the Anointed Processions, the Doubling Seasons, the Parallel Lives. I understand why they didn't add them. I wish they did, but I understand why Wizards didn't add them. But they did give you some, like, really cool cards. Like, the one I really want to call out is Orin Frostfang. It's a 5 CMC 2/6 snake. All attacking creatures you control gain Death Touch, and when they deal combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. That's huge. And yeah, overall, this is probably one of the better commander decks this season, just because for a new player, this is going to be a great onboarding deck. I'd heavily recommend that new players go for this deck, just because at least that way you won't have to deal with some of the more complex strategies or having to upgrade your deck the same way. Now, you will have to upgrade it if you want to get it to a competitive level, but the other issue I find with this deck is the same issue I've already said it multiple times over the course of this video. And I know it's kind of a lame answer that dies to removal, but the amount of board wipes I see in a commander game is huge. So if you're going to play this deck, you're going to want to figure out ways to mass protect your creatures as much as you can. Because smash face creature decks, I find, work at beginners tables or lower power level tables. But when you get into higher level tables, like just power level I'm talking about, I'm not even talking about skill level, just power level, it stops being less of a viable strategy, unfortunately. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Populate deck. Now, overall, solid deck. As always, you can follow us on all major social media. That's all in the description box below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Easy way to support us in everything we do. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on other things, or tell me which deck you're hyped for in Commander in the comments below. I read all the comments. I try to reply when I can, or at least I try to address them in a video in some way. So, as always, I'll talk to you next time.